From the burning fire, the witch began to recite a spell that she would seal both the sun and the moon in the heavens. Those who follow the truth have eternal life, but those who turn away from it face oblivion. The daughter, holding the smartphone in her hand, asks her mom to look at a picture of a beautiful girl and shrieking says it's very pretty. Everything is so sparkly and shiny. Mom agrees with the girl, and at the same time asks what it is. The girl excitedly says that this is her novel, which was released today, and that the artist who drew the cover is very popular because she has been waiting for it for 6 months. The woman calmly says that the name is good, and another platitude how many times she said, "This blonde with long hair is the main character, whose name is Delia. She is an orphan, but she does not surrender to fate because she possesses intelligence and good looks." Mom, immersed in her thoughts, asks her daughter if she's coming to the retirement ceremony later. The daughter shrieks, "Let them listen to her first, and then ask." Mom turns around dumbfounded at the shriek, once again asking if she's coming. Meanwhile, the daughter hesitates and replies that she doesn't know. A grown-up lady leaving the house calmly tells her daughter to do as she wishes, but only not to come by car, because there are traffic jams. But if she still gathers, then let her wear what hangs in her room, because it is expensive. The girl saw the dresses and was very upset because this style is not her taste, and it looked as if from someone else's shoulder. Mom is thinking about a light green dress on the way to the ceremony. If she could wear it, she would have done it a long time ago. As she entered the inner hall of Cheongguinam, she realized that her life as a history teacher ends today. The man thanked the teacher for her 20 years of service to their history department, as she has accomplished great academics and contributed to the education of the cadre. An educator who had worked for many years at a university for the first time didn't know what to do. The man asked for general photos and told the faculty members to step forward and the taller ones to take a seat in the back. The teacher was totally upset, but when she saw her daughter in a green dress taking a picture on her phone, she got really excited. She came after all. After the ceremony was over, Mom and daughter walked together to the bus stop. Because of Mom's bad mood, they didn't talk at all. My daughter kept writing something on her phone, and eventually my mom couldn't help herself and made a remark that she should stop sitting on her phone and ruining her eyesight. The girl continues to stare at her phone, but her mom, to distract her, says that the girl looks good in that dress. The young lady says she, of course, had to dress special for her mother's ceremony. Thinking back to her childhood, she envied the children who wore such clothes. But the young girl says this kind of clothing is worn by those who are comfortable with it. Mom's thoughts are interrupted by the girl asking which title is higher than Baron or Duke. To this question, the teacher quickly replies that the highest title is Duke, and naturally it turns out that Baron is the lowest rank. The young lady wonders how she should be. Her mother asks what the girl is talking about. After all, she initially thought the title of Baron was higher, so she wrote it that way in her novel. The teacher, not holding back her laughter, asked what she had made up about. The girl in the green dress cries out for her to stop laughing because she's being serious. A mom asks what her daughter did during history class. She assumes the girl was snoozing, and yet she could have asked her. The girl answered her that she had asked her many times, but she ignored her every day and responded in some way. The woman with glasses replies that you should have looked, since she doesn't know the basics of cross-checking. The girl cries out that she was on a deadline and she wasn't herself. Fixing her glasses, the teacher says her daughter doesn't know how thoughtful writing by decent authors is. Mom explains to her daughter that the essay will be good only if it is written carefully selecting one word after another. If it is written as it is written just to write, it is a pachkatnia. The works of writers that have invested their souls will be constantly betrayed, having survived the time of 100,000 years. The teacher says that those essays that are written in a sloppy fashion, like she wrote, will be forgotten in a year. The girl shrieks sadly, but okay. The young lady, without giving up, replies that even if one man finds comfort in her novel, she will write only for him and maybe for herself. Mom realized that however this one person would also mock her novel. The young girl wondered how someone who wrote books could mistake a duke for a baron. The girl clutched her dress in her hands after hearing words from her mother with orders not to tell anyone that she was her daughter. Not knowing what to say, the girl stood up and shrieked that she was stupid and asking her mother if she was satisfied. The girl cried out that her mom is smart and never makes mistakes, and she is stupid and wrong even about such things. And that's because she looks like the father she's never met. The girl angrily told the woman not to worry, for she would not tell anyone that she was her daughter. Running away in anger from the bus stop because the girl no longer wants to continue the conversation with her mother, Mom, who didn't expect this turn of action, wanted to just talk, but Ji-hee didn't let her say a word, simply replying that everything she said was correct and there wasn't a single wrong word in there. The saddened girl asks the woman if she could comfort her for once by being a mother. This conversation made the girl very sad, her face washed with tears because this was not how she had envisioned today. The teacher realized that she was a mother first and foremost and should not have spoken to her daughter like that. Mom realizes that she has upset Ji-hee because the girl is very vulnerable and doesn't know how to deal with resentment yet. As if feeling the trouble with all her might, the mother shouts for the girl to stop because the traffic light has turned yellow. Without a moment's thought, the teacher, in order to protect her daughter, runs after her and pushes her daughter onto the pavement. And in the meantime, Mom takes the impact of the trolley bus on herself without thinking of the consequences. After all, this action is supposed to save the girl. Ji-hee falls hard on the pavement, hits his knee, and is in a lot of pain. She doesn't understand why it happened yet. The girl's eyes reddened, but not from the pain, but from seeing her mom giving her everything she had. Ji-hee choking on her tears, she sobs like a thunderstorm and looks at her mother who is lying almost unconscious. Mom, pulling herself together with all her might, whispered that thank God she had survived. Her girl's alive. Ji-hee asks why Mom is lying down, and all she hears in response is to not look at her. Everything swam in the girl's eyes as if in a fog. When the girl woke up, she saw strange people who had strange clothes people as if dressed for a performance or parade. Suddenly, out of nowhere, there was a very loud bang of a stick against the floor, and someone shouted, "What insolence!" The young man in the knight's uniform cringes, asking if she knows what she just did. The girl doesn't understand at all what this uncle is talking about. The evil knight asks the girl why she called him uncle. After all, how dare she from a lower class speak like that? The young lady asks what he is talking about, for she hears such a word in a liberal democratic society. Because if he does say something like that somewhere. But suddenly, before the girl had finished her speech, a realization came to her. Chung only sees the boots, and at the same time tells Uncle to listen because it's not that she's so principled, but why yell like that because she can hear everything. The girl looked up, and seeing the shoulders continues to say that she too collapsed there, not because she wanted to collapse, and now she feels guilty. But when the girl saw the young man's face, she said that it was necessary to warn him from now on, since the shooting was in progress. A voice was heard from the small crowd, some of the people asking if the girl had been seen here. The evil knight named the little girl. That's why she resented being called that as an adult. The girl, seeing her reflection on the knight's uniform, cries out. Not understanding anything, Chong with all her might pushes the knight away from her because he is very angry and she does not like him. Two young men ran up to the falling knight and asked if the general was all right. The girl looked at her hands and couldn't believe where she got so much strength from. The young lady doesn't understand anything at all, where she is and what happened to her. Her eyes have many questions to which the answer is yet to be found out. The teacher comes to her senses to see the knights, one of whom cries out that it is not enough for her to step on the mantle of the esteemed duke, so she also attacks his guard. I mean, that's ballsy. The girl is desperate at the accusations that have been spouted at her, thinking wait a minute, because she didn't mean to without realizing what's going on here. The evil knight grabbed the girl by her dress and told her to thank heaven that their master was a duke. If she stepped on the baron's robe, she would say goodbye to her life right there. The guy who was standing behind the knight said it was all because of the bastard Moulton. The knights were talking amongst themselves about how if he hadn't taken credit for their duke, he would now have risen to the title of baron. Meanwhile, the girl sighed lightly, thinking about the fact that it wasn't her fault. A man dressed in black appeared in front of the knight, and it was as if he was laughing out of them. The people in the crowd thought that the title of duke was higher than that of baron. How surprised they were. At that time, the young lady laughed, for she knew that the baron was at the bottom of it. What the hell is wrong with you people? That's funny. You're talking the same nonsense as Ji-hee. The knight has no intention of tolerating this wench and tells her that because she stepped on the mantle, it is an insult to the duke that she will not get away with. A girl who has not yet had time to stand up, suddenly she is kicked with her shoes. She cries out in pain. The defiant men attack even more, not even her screams stopping them. The girl asks for help, but everyone just watches. From the pain, the girl, without losing her strength, screamed that enough idiots, and thus pushed them away from her. The young lady, getting up, said, well, she understood that the gentleman was of blue blood, and meanwhile apologized for stepping on his clothes. The girl asks if it's worth it to be beaten up in broad daylight on the street in front of everyone. The young lady cries out, but honestly, anyone looking would think she'd finished a man off. The battered girl shrieks, turning to the gawkers, and asks why no one stopped them. After all, they could help the person who is being beaten, but instead, they stand in a pillar and watch. Then the girl turns to the Duke and says that even though his subordinates are making a mess, he won't blink an eye. It seems that stepping on the hem hurt the gentleman's ego. Pointing a finger at him, the girl tells the aristocrat to behave appropriately and not to belittle adults. The knight from Surprise opened his mouth meanwhile. The girl, without looking back, ran away from the place of insult. Some of the subordinates shouted, "Catch the girl." The Duke stopped them and said, "Leave this child alone because they are late for the meeting." The knights objected to the Duke, saying that it could not be left like that, for they must seize her and teach her a lesson and what the people would think. The second knight exclaimed correctly, or else rumors would spread again that would harm his reputation. The Duke, without looking back, left asking his subjects if they were going too. In the meantime, the girl who had run away stopped near the house, for she had a moment to breathe, and she sat down and thought about what she had done. And if she had been hit with the axe held by those warriors, she would probably not be alive. The young lady looked at her hand and saw the scratch and thought, what cruel bastards. Looking to the left, the girl saw a mirror and herself in it. The teacher thought that the retirement ceremony must have been over, and she had been in an accident while saving Ji-hee, but when she opened her eyes, here she was, and she was a child. Chong looks at himself in the mirror and thinks, and what is it? The hair color, the face, for some reason it is familiar. The teacher thought she was dreaming for a while, and it was a dream so vivid and realistic that she even felt pain, except it's not a dream. As the blonde sat, she saw two little girls and said hello to them. The little girl was named Young Lady Delia. Delia is a little girl who was abandoned in a stable one cold winter night and survived by trying to scrounge scraps. The young lady is the child whose life is one of trouble and wandering. There's poor orphan poor Delia. And today, the rebel Delia got into trouble in the square because she stepped on Duke Pearl's mantle and on the Baron's mantle and on the ruler's mantle too. The little girls wondered if Delia would die, for wherever she went, there was no place where she would not be chased. The children pondered in rumor that a dress embroidered with precious stones and sparkling jewels was something that could not be Delia's fate. The little girl pitied the orphan Delia, calling her a bumbling loser and rebel, but the little girl took pity on the young lady and whispered in her ear to beware of the young man with scarlet eyes. A little more time passed, and the little girl said goodbye to the beautiful blonde, wished her good luck, and quickly ran away. The young girl says it all kind of snowballs and who Delia is. After thinking for a bit, the protagonist remembered everything that had happened to her before she was here. She remembered her daughter, their conversation, and the girl who was bookmarked on her smartphone. Chong Guinam realized that she was the teacher who was coming home with her daughter because of one action, turned into a young girl. Suddenly, the protagonist heard voices of people who are probably looking for her. She thought it was the men from the square. The warriors were ready to scour all the alleys and market stalls to find the fugitive. The young lady cries out and thinks about how she can escape. But suddenly, someone grabs her from behind and covers her mouth with her hand. The young man, without taking his hands from the girl's mouth, whispers to her to bear it a little. The young lady smelled the pleasant odor of vanilla. As the voices got closer, the girl pulls out of his arms and you ask what it means, because it was pretty sudden. The stranger apologized to the girl, and afterwards she thanked him for his help. The guy asks the girl why she is thanking him, since he is the one who is running away. The young lady wonders if it was him they were looking for. When the stranger shouldered his sack and climbed easily to the roof, the young lady, looking at him closely, cried out that he was a thief. Delia asks the guy what he stole there. The guy, surprised, replies that he only steals girls' hearts. Those words really stuck with the girl. The protagonist realizes that this is impossible to believe, but she has convinced herself with her own eyes that she is inside Ji-hee's novel, questioning whether this is a dream or the afterlife or something else. Walking along the shopping section of the street, the girl hears a man turning to a woman and shouting to her to put an apple in a bag. Faster, the woman replies, "If he is in such a hurry, he could have come yesterday." A completely different world, and whatever is there, but the protagonist won't know what became of Chong Guinam in this reality. Walking down the street, the woman thinks about her daughter and whether she'll be okay, because she has investments, insurance, and a pension, so you don't have to worry about her livelihood. Perceived girl, walking down the street, sees a man running, from whose bag fell out an apple. She shouted uncle that he dropped the apple. In response, the man shouted that he has no time to let her eat it. When the blonde looked back, she heard a man shrieking in a hurry that he was in big trouble, and after all, it was trouble. The girl sat down to pick up the apple, and again she was absorbed in thoughts of her daughter, regretting that she had unintentionally spoken such harsh words to her, for they were the last in their conversation. The protagonist has made a decision not to take these thoughts to heart, because her head is full of only one regret and many questions, but it has already happened, and time cannot go back. Biting the apple, blonde, cheering herself up, and thinking positively, because she has nothing to do after retirement anyway, and because it's better than fooling around at home. The young lady sat down on a bench in the park and thought about the fact that she was young and had a lot of strength, because in her whole body beats vitality. It's such a simple youthfulness when one apple already puts you in a good mood. The main character, after eating the apple, thought without knowing that she would feel so good again, because Along is ready to savor this youth. The girl thinks she needs to find out what kind of place she's in first. After all, everyone understands her Korean language with no problem, and she understands by ear too. Delia looks at the streets and notices that there are no lavish buildings in this neighborhood, because it must be a settlement of simple people, which can be judged by the style of buildings and clothes of people. The whole thing was like Europe, somewhere between the Middle Ages and the New Age. The girl realized that her name is Delia and thinks she is a round orphan who has no clothes, food, or shelter. The young lady cries out that she must have some coin, and suddenly notices that there is a pendant around her neck that she can sell for money. To be born at a time like this to a lower-class person is a ruthless fate like Delia's. Walking down the street, the girl meets a man and asks him where she is, but the man looked at her in surprise and answered nothing. Delia thought her question looked silly and strange. Approaching another man, the young lady said she couldn't count and asked what year it was 15 years ago. The unfamiliar man thought for a moment and replied that it was the 351st year of the imperial calendar. Delia thought it was not European chronology and turned to the man and said how smart he was, but asked if he knew about politics. A conversation ensued between them. The girl asked the man what's been going on in neighboring countries lately and what people are talking about. The man does not know which of the neighboring countries he is being asked about, because there is not one or even two of them. Without thinking of anything else, the girl replied from above. The man asks if she's talking about Gloria. The unfamiliar man claims that all they're doing is making noise, because now everyone has crossed over there across the empire's border. The young lady wonders what it means, for the name of this country is Imperium. After all, people who have abandoned their country and crossed the border because it means that the circumstances here are much more favorable than in other countries. The girl thinks this country is quite vast, and this place is the capital of the state, but at the same time, the man says that society is also in turmoil because people are losing their jobs everywhere, and the situation is such that it is better to close the borders. The main character has realized what this feeling of hostility is like, and it's just an opinion of one carrying information, so there's no point in listening further with interest. The girl says she has another question. The man with a disgruntled face asks what it is, and the young lady whispers where she can make money. Hearing the question, the man is very angry and asks after all for the sake of this she has interrogated him. When the man did not hear the answer, he shouted very loudly that there is an illegal immigrant here, and the young lady cries out no, and at the same time runs away as hard as she can because she does not want to be captured by the military again. Running away from the park, the young lady took a little breath she saw around her beautiful ladies in very pretty dresses, and somewhere in the distance, a voice was heard calling out, "Buy flowers." Between these women was, and the Earl's wife Chelsea, who was wearing a black lace dress. The main character standing in the square and watching young girls make money selling flowers to women in beautiful dresses. As it seemed to her, it was a different street compared to the street she was on, for here you can make money. Delia thought hopefully as she looked for a job and eyed the flower sellers watching them. The girl is already imagining what kind of flowers she will sell. The main character is so interested in this idea, and she thinks laughing because she is a creative housekeeper with no capital. The girl overheard a conversation between the saleswomen, one of whom complained that all the flowers had wilted, and the other, meanwhile, advised her not to tear all the flowers at once, but just run to pick often. The frustrated saleswoman left the workplace prematurely. The main character was curious about where the girls went and decided to follow them. After a little while, they came to a flower meadow. The salesgirls kept talking amongst themselves about flowers. Dahlia, being in a good mood, decided to say hello to the girls with the hopes of making friends with them. But the girls did not want to make contact with the stranger. They did not even answer her questions. The protagonist asks them if they pluck and then sell flowers here, and how much they earn by selling one flower, and if among these flowers are the most sold flowers. She didn't get an answer because the saleswomen continued to be silent. One of the flowers the girl liked very much, and she decided to pick it. And the salesgirls shouted that she did not touch the flowers, and with all her might pushed her. Delia didn't expect this behavior from the girls and asks why they are pushing. Angry sales clerks shouted that it was their lot, and the flowers from it belonged to them, so let her pick elsewhere. The protagonist cries foul, and realizes that at her age, she can't fight children either. Suddenly, someone behind her asks if she wants to pick flowers, because there are more flowers outside the west gate than here. A pretty girl with black long hair explains that it's far away, so there are no people there, and she's just about to go there and asks if they can go together. Trembling, Delia asks if the stranger will take her with her after all. She is afraid of those mean girls. The brunette, turning to the girl, says that she sees her for the first time, assuming that she is a visitor, and willingly offers her basket, because they will go to pick flowers together. The girls got to know each other, and Delia learned that the beautiful brunette's name was Bellucci. Walking down the road together, the girls strike up a conversation, and Delia asks Bellucci if she came from Italy. The brunette doesn't understand what her friend is talking about, and the protagonist decides not to ask such questions anymore. When they came to the clearing, the girls collected full 2 baskets of very beautiful flowers, and one of them says that's enough because we have to go back. When they arrived at the bazaar, the girls wished each other good luck and went in different directions to sell flowers. Delia stands in the market and thinks about how she can sell flowers because there are a lot of competitors and she already knows where to start. The main character, seeing a girl in a beautiful dress, appealed to her to wait, but this girl defiantly replied that she does not buy flowers. Delia claims that her flower just really suits her dress to the lady and thus got her interested. The protagonist, putting a flower to the beau lady, is pleased and says how gorgeous her dress has become and suggests that even if the same color flower stuck in the hat will be just a peek. The young lady states that if a flower is pinned to a lady, this work will be called service. The lady replied, laughing, "You just look at her," and agrees to buy 5 flower buds from the girl. The girl, from what she heard, thought they had seen how to trade. At the same time, the woman asks how much she has to pay. Delia is confused because she doesn't know prices or currency. The main character says, "Wait please," because she can't count and she needs to think. But by doing this action, she realized that there is no way out. But quickly realized Delia shows her index finger and says about that much and thinks she will determine from the lady's look. The customer looks at her and asks what coin she should pay, because she has never bought flowers, so she does not know the prices. The protagonist shrieks 5 ferrum, and at the same time other saleswomen run up to the lady and offer their flowers. A great commotion was created near the lady, but Delia quickly dispersed the saleswomen, arguing that it was her customer. Having sold the flowers, the young girl did not know how she should now look into Bellucci's eyes and what she was thinking, not knowing the rates of taking up the trade. Ferrum means iron in Latin, and iron coins rust easily and are of low value, but they are easy to make. There are certainly more valuable coins made of gold or silver. So look everywhere written in Latin and the name of the country Imperium, because the young lady, in her own way, researched the subject. The contented girl thinks, wondering if this is a world entirely created by Jihe, and the more she learns about it, the more interesting it becomes. But then the girl wonders where homeless Delia should sleep, for she needed to earn money to go to the inn. The girl realizes that selling flowers is clearly not an option, because anyone can pick flowers and sell them without a problem, but she has nothing suitable for trading something else. A young lady steps down the street and thinks a different tactic is needed, but then she notices a small shack in front of her. The protagonist thinks this cabin was abandoned by her underbuilders, as it seems a bit creepy to her, but there are no other options. Delia says she'll clean up a little bit, because not everything in there is trash. When the young lady enters the cabin, she sees that the people are gone, having just left the building as it is. But then the girl, looking at the things left behind, realizes that she has found that very different tactic. A little while later, the flower sellers on the street are very upset because no one is buying flowers from them. The little ones don't understand what's going on, but suddenly a few ladies run by them. One of them shrieks how long this girl will work, and another lady in the crowd cries out that they said they would finish when the flowers wilted, so they need to hurry. The little girls don't understand what these women are talking about, so they decide to run after them. Well, as they approach the place, they are surprised to see a very large crowd of aristocrats. One of the girls asks, "What is that there, and is that building a tent?" and the other tells her friend to look at the girl near the entrance to the tent. They realize it's Bellucci. The brunette at the exit of the next lady invites the next. A woman asks you just out lady how it went and if the rumors are true. The woman only points a finger up in confirmation of the rumors, and the woman's interest in such a thing only grows stronger. When the next madam enters the cabin, Bellucci asks to leave money inside, and the aristocrat agrees. When the woman walks into the tent, she wonders if she should really believe it. But when she sees the furnishings inside, she is a little surprised. In the middle of the room, near a table of plants, sits the main character, and she tells the lady to sit down. After all this, the lady with the golden hair runs up to Bellucci and tells the girl to take a look at what she found there. But the brunette only cries. The protagonist is surprised because she doesn't understand anything. She then runs up to her friend and asks why she is crying and what happened. The girl is only in tears, asks Delia how she can be, because she could hardly sell only 2 flowers, and she will get from her mother again when she returns home. Delia puts her hands on her friend's shoulders and tells her to listen carefully, after which the girl claims she's about to erect a tent there. Therefore, it will be possible to make a lot more money than by selling flowers. After which, the lady with golden hair asks if the girl will help her. A little while later, they're already finishing all the work. The young lady says such is the power of youth, and they got through it in a jiffy. The brunette asks Delia what she's up to, since it's so hot and Delia is wearing gloves. Bellucci tells Delia that it's not right, because she has to sell the flowers before the sun goes down, and the protagonist says she has a question for Bellucci's student. She then holds out her hand and asks in what cases gloves are used. The girl assumes they are made to protect against the cold, and also when handling dangerous objects or during battles. The brunette had also seen noble ladies wear gloves, but not for protection. The golden-haired lady strokes her friend on the head and says she got off easy. And the girl, when she sees her friend putting on the rest of the costume, cries out if Delia is going to do something dangerous. The protagonist only asks Bellucci for help with tying the costume. The girl says there is nothing to tie with, so the young lady hands her a pendant and tells her to try tying with it. The protagonist asks her friend if she only sold flowers and didn't work anywhere else. The young lady says that because her friend usually eats so little that she can't even walk. The brunette asks how she knows all this, and Delia says that a person's palm can tell a lot about a lot of things. You can tell if it's a child, a man, or a woman just by looking at the palm of your hand. You can also see even his health condition and profession. Young goes up and says her friend's hand is a little rough, but there are no calluses on it, and the surface of her nail is uneven, and that is a sign of protein deficiency. She adds that hands can believe a lot about a person. Well, not only hands are informative, but also physique, intonation, appearance, and gait. And then such information may be taboo, so the lollipop golden-haired girl asks if she still looks like a child. The brunette is surprised at her friend's transformation, and Delia tells Bellucci that from now on she is an adult with mystical powers, and she needs Bellucci's help. The girl was telling her friend to go outside and take a good look at the people, then find the one dressed prettiest but with the darkest expression on her face, and if the brunette says certain words to her, the lady will certainly follow her. So now the brunette turns to this woman and says she knows an outstanding fortune-teller, which, true to form, will predict anything. The woman is a little shocked by this, but she agrees. Now Bellucci says that she didn't think that miss would really follow her. However, she doesn't understand if it's enough to bring only one person, because to make money, you need more people. Findy with golden hair says one is enough. After the session, rumors begin to spread about the fortune-teller. One woman sitting at a table with her friends says that thanks to her, she will be able to sleep well from today. The lady says that she just hasn't been able to sleep at all for a few nights now because of anxiety. Her friends say it's a good thing she went to the gurney. The two of them then ask where the place is, at which time the protagonist says that rumors spread faster than we do. The brunette realizes that it turned out just as Delia said, and a lot of people gathered. The woman who came into the tent says it's surprising because no fortune-teller has ever visited their village. The brown-haired woman asks where she came from. The main character says that someone who has mysterious magical powers doesn't remember the places he wanders through. The aristocrat just keeps talking and asks where the girl learned this. The protagonist thinks this woman keeps saying unnecessary things. Delia wondered if she was testing her abilities or if she was unable to keep quiet. Yes, she looks at the aristocrat, but she just keeps talking. The woman states that the air is not good there and asks how about working in a more presentable location. She raises her fan and saying that people of noble birth are very sensitive to the air, and the lady with the golden hair notices the ring on the woman's hand and realizes it's pretty thin. It's too modest for a noblewoman to wear, But then she realizes it's a gimel ring. It is an upscale engagement ring that was popular among aristocrats in the Middle Ages. Its peculiarity is that a trio of such rings is capable of folding into one, and traditionally, each ring belongs to 3 people, one of them for the groom. The second is due to the bride, and the third, such as this woman has, is kept by the witness. This is the third ring in the future wedding. It is worn by the groom to the bride and plays the role of unity of the couple. After the ceremony, it will sparkle on the bride's ring finger of her left hand. The protagonist says that a prediction has appeared, and if the woman is interested, have her put money in this box. The brown-haired girl is a little shocked. She says she hasn't even said anything yet, then cries out that the girl is a fraud. She heads for the exit and yells that the mysterious magical power doesn't exist, and the fortune teller babbles whatever head comes to mind. But the lady with golden hair only says that among the people who hastily raise a toast, there is not one who understands the unhappy heart. The woman looks very interested in this, and the young lady continues and says that all 3 shed tears on the day of the vows. 2 of them were tears of happiness. The one left alone was shedding bitter tears. The woman asks in shock how the fortune teller knew, and the protagonist says that this is the mysterious magical power. The woman asks who she is, and the main character just says what a beautiful ring she has. The girl claims that it is dangerous to carry an important thing like that, and suddenly she will lose it. But the lady with the golden hair asks if that's what the woman wants. The brown-haired woman only clenched her fists. Delia goes on and says that the woman is a witness to the marriage, yet at the same time does not want their wedding. The main vision says it could be because of a man cheating. A college stranger says the girl is the very first person to guess the ring. The young lady thinks this is certainly true, for who in ordinary life would wear a ring that is meant to be kept? She suggests that the stranger sit down first, and she will listen to her story. Then the woman does so and begins her story. The Shatka claims she has a sister 2 years older than her and has been close friends with the stable boy since she was a little girl. And even when they grew up then were still close. After which one day an old duke, seeing a portrait of his sister, proposed to her. The girl, of course, was against it, so refused. But the father, without paying attention, decided to hold a marriage ceremony. But then, on the day of the wedding, the sister disappeared with the stable boy, though it was reported everywhere, but they could not find her. And everyone immediately thought that the sister had committed suicide because of the unwanted wedding, but the woman did not stay. She recalled that her sister liked to say she wanted to live in a house overlooking the sea, after which she finally found her relative in a shawl on the seashore. As soon as the girl saw her, she didn't even greet her. She came out and cried and apologized. Unsurprisingly, a stable boy came out from behind, holding a small box in his hand. He said they would soon play a lavish wedding and ask the woman to be their witness. After hearing this, the Shaitan girl, angry, wanted to leave them, but her sister, crying, held her back and told her that they would soon have a baby, since out of desperation she witnessed, for she has no right to anger. The lady turns to a fortune teller and asks her to tell her what to do and how to get her sister back. The main character asks the lady if she has told her parents, and the woman replies that she hasn't. Further asks the shawl to put her hand on the box because the prediction is determined. Let it be what must happen, and do not ruin the fate of others. However, just quietly observe. The lady shrieked in nonsense, for her sister was the Viscount's daughter, and she received everything of only the highest quality. Delia calmly asked the girl why she didn't take it with her if she was really against her sister's wedding and had long ago thrown that ring into the river. The main character watches as the girl holds her hands and goes on to say, "If you really wanted to take your sister with you, you would have told your parents. However, if you hated the man, with the help of people you could also teach him a lesson." These words really caught the aristocrat, and she began to cry. Delia took her hand and soothingly said that she understood her worry about her sister, and after all how heavy on her heart it was when she couldn't tell anyone. The protagonist stating that even if from the outside it seems like a road to hell for that person, it could be heaven. And if it's so unbearable, you can help by respecting your sister's choice. Delia, holding the hand of the crying girl affirmingly, says that this is the only way to find happiness for you and your sister. Men and women coming to Delia were very surprised and shrieked, asking how she knew everything. When the strange man walked inside the room, Delia looked at him carefully. Well, after all, he has a strong arm build. It gives away his stubborn demeanor, and the man asks how she knew he was military. Looking at the next man, the protagonist realized that fate is favorable to him, except for children problems. He cannot have a surprised man asks how she knew it was because of the children. The young girl cries out because it is definitely because of the man and how she found out. but the fortune teller was careful, because when the girl barely entered, all blabbed. Dahlia replied that she could call it a mysterious, mystical force. Continuing on, the protagonist asked the girl to put her hand on the box and asked to say what the girl wanted to know from the future. Though inside the long history, eras have changed many times, and people's lives are not particularly different, having been born just a few decades in that fleeting moment. Everyone who came to Delia's room asked different questions. The young man said that he had given up his chance for promotion to a coworker, and it kept bothering him, and asked the fortune teller if he had done the right thing. And they all have regrets. An elderly man worries that his only daughter is wandering the world. He's afraid something bad will happen to her. The protagonist sees that they are anxious for something that hasn't happened yet. A young, beautiful girl tells a fortune teller that everyone around her says that her boyfriend has a bad reputation and tells her to stay away from him, and asks Delia if she should keep seeing him. Further, I realize that I suffer when I try to catch the crane in the sky. Holding her hands over the box, the protagonist said that with her mysterious magical power, she foresaw her future inscribed on a flower. The fortune teller opens the box and flowers fall out, but she tells the man not to interfere this time and to give in to that man, because next time he will have an even better chance. The protagonist asked the man because he happened to have a strict upbringing at home. The man shrieked because, exactly, she looked bored on ordinary days. Even if Delia didn't see the prediction, each problem already determined the answer. A girl who couldn't leave a guy with a bad reputation talking to a fortune teller realized that she actually knew he was seeing other women, and thanks to Delia, everything in her heart fell into place. And everything is already the reason they come to this place. And all the people who thought that the fortune teller had solved their problems generously thanked her, throwing coins into the box. After all, it's just a desire to be heard by someone and receive comfort from them. Left to herself for a moment, one protagonist pondered that she could say that to complete strangers, but why she couldn't say that to her own daughter. Delia's thoughts were interrupted by the voice of a young man who asked why she hadn't told him she was divining by hand lines. And at the same time, the fortune teller thought she needed to concentrate. The protagonist began to say that with her mysterious magical power, she foresaw his future inscribed on a flower. And meanwhile, the fortune teller concluded that the bass, which makes one feel cold for sure, excited the girls with his voice. Delia looks at the man and asks him if he is looking for true love or if he desires eternal glory. The protagonist, meanwhile, thinks to the broad shoulders slender station looks rich, but not so opulent to flaunt. If so, it must be a uniform. A handsome young man looks at the fortune teller and says nothing, and this makes the protagonist shocked. After a while, a young man with scarlet eyes asks what this mysterious magical power is. The protagonist thinks he's the same jerk, but without giving any sign, continues to say that fortune-telling only comes out if it's filled with a cherished desire to know the future, and at the same time asks what kind of future he would like to know. The man stares intently at the fortune-teller and says nothing. Delia gets nervous and starts to say that in that case today's divination, but suddenly, the guy stands up and pulls the screen off her face, and at the same time the locket falls to the floor. Suddenly, a shout is heard outside the door that you can't come in here, and a man in military uniform bursts into the room to the fortune teller. Turning to the Duke, he shrieks that the feudal administration department said that they did not give permission. The military man turns to the girl, and the guy with scarlet eyes asks the military man if he knows this girl. The military man replies that no, just for some reason she seems familiar. Surprised girls ask so they did not come here to learn the fate that brought you here, noble lord. The guy asks if she got a permit because it is a prerequisite for entrepreneurship in the estate. After all, if you go to the agency now and write an application, they will give you permission to pursue the case. At last, the girl realized what the matter was, for she did not know about such formalities and would now fold up the tent and leave quickly. A man in a military uniform recognized the protagonist and, turning to the Duke, asked if she was the girl who had stepped on his mantle during the day. The young lady asks what he said and claims that the gentleman actually made her laugh. The guy, however, cries out that she is the one he was talking about. A man in a military uniform tells the gentleman that this girl is a commoner, for she is always on the lookout and somehow suspicious. But first, she must be taken away with him. Delia heard they were going to be picked up and asked Bellucci if she was running well. The young girls, holding hands, quickly ran away from the tent as they were chased by men in military uniforms. The knight, who recognized the girl, cries out loudly that little mouse-like girl, for this time she can't escape. Meanwhile, the Duke saw something lying on the floor. He bent down and picked up the locket. The fleeing girls crouch near a high wall to catch their breath a bit, and Delia says she has escaped many times before. Bellucci, surprised, says her friend is so fast, and at the same time Delia asks if it's true. Suddenly, the protagonist stands up and cries out, by the way, money, because she left the day money bag. Delia realizes her problem and starts sobbing and cries out, because she's gone mad and it's all downhill from there. Bellucci shows her friend the bag of coins and asks if she's talking about it, because she took the coins when she grabbed her hand, fearing that those people would take it away. The main character, upon hearing this, immediately calmed down, and her face changed to a face with a smile instead of tears. Delia happily hugged her friend and enthusiastically said what a sweetheart and good girl she was. The girls wondered how much they had earned. Quickly counting the money, they found out that they had earned 2 aurum and 803 ferrum. As expected, Delia thought, gold, silver, copper, and iron monetary unit in Latin. 1 high-value coin is 10 low-value coins is not so different from the way reality counts money. Not so different from the way money is counted in reality aurum, it is gold if counted separately. It will have a value of more than 10 silver. When the friends were counting the coins, they heard someone calling them, and when they turned around, they saw the flower sellers. The vendors apologized for chasing Delia away from their territory because the girl had taken away a customer from them and justified themselves by saying that if they didn't sell the flowers, they were hungry, because they were in a hurry, so it happened. The girls, weeping, sincerely said that they also want to sell flowers as skillfully as the protagonist and asking if she can teach them the art of successful selling, because for this, they will do anything she tells them to do, but only to teach them. A surprised Delia turns to Bellucci and asks her where the restaurant with the most delicious food is. Stopping at the entrance to the restaurant, the girls ask Delia if they can go into such a place and suddenly hear the answer that it's okay, rather go in. Inside the restaurant, the girls were greeted by a woman and with a smile on her face and said welcome. In response, the protagonist said there were 7 of them. Delia shows Mistress the pouch and says she has the money. And if you don't have a large table, set up individually. Mistress, looking at the sack, asks the girl and where she stole it from. An indignant Delia cries out, what? But the lady continues to say, after all, you all go out to sell flowers, and is there anyone in this neighborhood who isn't aware of your situation? The woman, shrieking, asks where the money came from the children living just to take and come to such a place. Mistress, without stopping, shouts for the girls to get out of here immediately, or she'll call the guards. The girls wait in the hope that the woman will calm down, but the mistress, shrieking, turns to Mary and tells her to get a guard here. Hearing this, the girls ask Delia to leave. Delia could not even imagine such a thing, that being from such a class, no matter how much money she made the source of it, would be questioned. The protagonist, without going anywhere, asks if this money is stolen. Hearing this, the woman, shrieking, asks, then where did you get it from, and do you have proof? Delia confidently replied, of course, that money was donated by that noble lady, and points her index finger at the woman sitting at the large table. Approaching the table where the noble ladies were seated, Delia cries out, Madam, thank you very much. Thanks to you, we were able to afford a hot dinner too. The lady, confused, answers, because they seem to have mistaken me for someone else. The main character turns to the girls and shouts, why are you frozen? Rather, thank you. The girls all walked together over to the women who were sitting at the table eating lunch and began to shriek, thank you, ma'am. The woman doesn't know what it's about and excitedly says, oh my God, there's some kind of mistake. The ladies who sat at a neighboring table excitedly asked if she was helping the poor children, for they were pleasantly surprised. Madam, and this is what it means to belong to a noble family. The woman thought let it be, since she didn't care, and ended up wishing the girls a pleasant appetite. Delia, turning to the lady who didn't want to let them in, cheerfully states that the lady has confirmed. The main character tells the girls to sit down and order everything. The flower sellers worryingly ask the girl nothing that they will order a lot, and the girl replies that eat as much as you like, because only by trying well, you can grow strong. When the girls had eaten, turned to Delia, thanked her, for it was the first time they had tasted such delicious food. And from tomorrow, they will sell flowers the way the main character explained to them. The young lady tells the girls to open their palms and puts money in their hands, but tells them not to give it to their families, but to save it for a rainy day. Delia explains to the girls that they may have days when they can't sell flowers, but you won't be crying every time. She gave the rest of the money that was left in the main character to her friend Bellucci and thanked her for helping her today. When Delia leaves, she tells the girls to hurry home because their parents will be worried. Seeing off the young lady, the flower sellers thought she sounded like their grandmother. Going home, Bellucci thought over the words that her friend had said to her and came to the conclusion that she was right. Bellucci realized that even if the flowers didn't sell within a few days with that money, you could be safe that she wouldn't be punished. From now on, we need to save up a little bit at a time so we don't cry tomorrow. The brunette, immersed in her thoughts entering her house, forgot to knock on the door and suddenly saw a man. She got a little embarrassed. The man, shrieking, asks Bella what that little thing is. The woman replies that it's her own servant. The stranger asks again, addressing the woman as she has a maid, but the lady replies that he should go away quickly. If he has finished his business, she has to go to the banquet. The man asks again that since the banquet is in honor of Count Martini's birthday, why on earth is she going there? And at the same time, the woman asks what he will do to her and says if he paid, let him and get off. An unfamiliar man, leaving shrieks that she is a damned woman, and his foot will not be here anymore. The woman, responding, calls him a fool, because 2 days will not pass as he will come again. After hearing all this, the brunette asks her mom since when is she a maid, and in response hears that Bellucci shouldn't come in when she has customers in her room. I mean, she'll be responsible if mom loses her job because she has a kid. The girl, hearing these words, felt guilty, and at the same time her mother asks how much money she earned today. The brunette gave her mom only a portion of her earnings, but the latter grudgingly asked, "And what are those pennies?" Mom wants her daughter to work harder tomorrow. Standing near her daughter, the mom smelled a familiar odor and asked if she had eaten meat today. At the time, the surprised daughter asks how she knew about it. Bellucci excitedly tells the lady in the red dress that she went to that place on 3rd Street today, to the biggest restaurant. Belvane Restaurant, asks the mom, and at the same time, the daughter confirms her words. The lady in the red dress comes up to her daughter and asks if it was good, and the girl enthusiastically replies that it was very good. Hearing these words, the mother suddenly grabs the girl's hair hard with her hand, and poor Bellucci cries out in great pain. The angry lady pulls the girl's hair without stopping and tells her that her mom is in a dirty and smelly place peddling her body. The woman asks angrily, looking into her daughter's eyes as a piece goes down her throat. The lady in the red dress, not holding back her anger, starts yelling because she told her daughter to come back with the money, but not to go eat meat. The woman suspects her daughter earned the money today and hid it somewhere. A young girl, trying to hold her mother's hands, shrieking that she didn't buy food because a friend gave her a treat. The lady, shrieking, claims her daughter is lying to her and asks where she got her friends from. Bellucci cries out that she's not lying, and at the same time tries to break free from her mom's arms as suddenly coins fall out of her stash. Saw the coins on the floor, mom looked at Bellucci surprised, and hand pushed her away at the same time, said her friend, and fed her daughter and gave her money. After calming down a bit, the woman asks if her girlfriend is wonderful. After collecting the money from the floor, the woman in red suggestively says that her daughter learned only mean things on the street. Putting a white cape on her shoulders, the mother, turning to her daughter, says that she will be back tomorrow and instructs the girl to wash all her clothes for her arrival. Stopping at the door, the woman says she doesn't care if her daughter steals money or gets mixed up with men on the street, but just don't let her lie to her because she can't stand people who lie. Poor Bellucci, lying on the floor sobbing very hard because her mother did not believe her because she told her the truth. Meanwhile, the protagonist, walking down the street, saw a board on which there was an inscription that the room is rented and decided to stay there for one night. Once inside, Delia negotiated a discount with the worker, but when she had to pay, she suddenly remembered that she had given all the coins she had earned to the girls and had forgotten to put aside money for a night's lodging. And in such a way, the protagonist found herself out on the street alone, on a rather chilly night. Sitting under the wall of some house on a dark night, Delia ponders the fact that she will now have to choose flower divination or take her workplace to her children. But you still have to get a permit. It's all just a lot of hassle. Looking at the night sky, the protagonist, wondering if this could be the wrong way to earn money, because earning it was not easy, but spending it was more. Delia realizes that without money, it is impossible to solve the problem of clothing, food, and shelter, because she never thought she would experience firsthand the evils of the class system she had only read about in books. The poor girl is very cold and says, "Why is it so cold?" because it was warm during the day. The protagonist anxiously asks herself how she should be tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and in general, how she should continue to live here. Taking a little nap, Delia heard a voice calling her mom, and it made her wake up. Delia looked around and saw nothing, and looking up, she saw a very bright moon and a voice asking if she could hear her, for she was Ji-hee. Looking up at the night sky, the protagonist, cringing, asks if it is true that she is Ji-hee. A mom who, worried about her daughter, asks if she's okay and where she's talking from now and if she's eaten. The daughter replies to her mom that she already knows what she's going to nag about, and meanwhile replies that she's eating well, getting enough sleep, and living perfectly well, and asks her not to worry about her, because she's more worried about her mom. Delia cried out to her daughter to wait and listen to her, for as she opened her eyes and suddenly found herself the protagonist of her novel. The girl kept saying how great it is that she's younger, but she has a question because she doesn't understand what's going on. Ji-hee replies that this is the content of her novel, because she tried and again asks if he is worse than mom thought. Delia looks up at the moon and cringes, saying that no matter how hard you look at it, because she really screwed up by putting the Baron above the Duke. After the woman's words, there was silence, for Ji-hee did not answer. Dahlia questioned again, after all, why the main character was from a lower class. Wouldn't it be better to make her a girl of noble birth? Ji-hee asks how she's doing, and her mom replies that it's good and just fine, because now she doesn't have to worry about what to make to eat every morning. My daughter tells her mother to take care of the suspension. Hearing these words, the protagonist cries out what an unbearable girl, because she is here trying to survive, and the daughter is interested in the well-being not of her own mother, but of the pendant. Ji-hee informs her mother that she has lost her pendant. On hearing this, mom cries out what nonsense, but not finding the pendant around her neck, she suddenly remembered where she might have lost it. The daughter informs that from the look of it, it is an unremarkable pendant made of wood, but it exists in a unique copy in this world, and asks her mother if she knew about it. Ji-hee, turning to his mother, says that he will give her a clue because she doesn't know the content of his novel, but the pendant knows why she came to this world and how she should act. The author of the novel demands that the woman find the pendant and then moonlight the back of it on the day of the full moon, because that's all she can tell her. The daughter's voice gets quieter, but she manages to say that it's a must for mom to find the pendant. Meanwhile, mom cries out that she can't hear her very well. The bright moon was covered by clouds, and heavy rain fell from the sky, and no matter how much the mom screamed, the daughter couldn't hear her anymore. At this time, a young man who has been awakened by the noise outside and opening the door screams that he is not being allowed to sleep. The young girl turns around, and when the guy saw her beauty, suddenly runs up to her and says in surprise that an angel has come down from heaven. A strange guy invited Delia into the house and apologized for being so sudden, explaining that a golden-haired angel like her comes to him in his dreams all the time. For in another word, he might call it inspiration. The young man, all the while eating, talks about himself, and the girl thinks he's a chatterbox. Dahlia, pretending to listen to the guy, but in fact she thinks that she feels better, because her daughter is doing well and what an asshole she is. Because after saying a few words, she disappeared at once. As she warmed up, the girl remembered that she had dropped the pendant in the tent, and thinking that it was useless to go looking for it now, since it was still dark and you couldn't see anything, the main character looked around and saw scissors scattered on the floor, while at the same time asking what the young man's name was. The guy replied that his name was Marcel, and the girl also introduced herself by giving her name. Marcel wonders why she's here at this hour, since it's late and raining outside. The guy offers to walk Delia home, but she suddenly cries out that she doesn't have a home. Marcel asks Delia in surprise if she sleeps in the open air, and shrieks and says it won't do, and it's still cold at night. The guy assumes that's the only reason the girl looks tired, asks if she has a family. The protagonist is silent for a moment, but then replies that she is homeless by fate. Worried about the girl, the young man asks if she has a place to sleep tonight or tomorrow. Enjoying the delicious tea, Delia replies that she'll find out when the sun rises. Marcel offers the girl another cup of tea, but the girl declines. Seeing a woman's hand behind Marcel's back, the girl was very frightened. Not realizing what happened, the guy asks if everything is okay and if she has a cold. The girl replies that she just choked on her tea. Sitting in a stranger's room, the protagonist thinks how crazy she is. Because why did she enter the house to a strange man, not even knowing what he does? Marcel saw that the guest was shivering and thought she had caught a cold, so he invited her into the fireplace to warm herself. The golden-haired girl asked the guy to make tea. He gladly agrees and asks if she is hungry and remembered that she has nowhere to go. The guy offers to spend the night at his place because there is a free room on the second floor. A frightened Delia decides to run, but suddenly she slips and falls to the floor and hits her head, knocking her unconscious. The next day, the girl woke up in a large room and, not understanding anything, shrieks where there is, because in front of her stood a mannequin with a beautiful dress. Marcel heard that the guest was awake, and turning to her, he said that she had not listened to him at all last night and had therefore made up her mind. A young man enters the room and says it's all there is to Marcel's boutique. A surprised Delia cries out, for she thought he was a cold-blooded scissor killer. Marcel, explaining to the girls that he had only finished moving last night and therefore had not had time to sort out the luggage because you can't have the dress covered with dust, so he covered them. But suddenly, the boy thought that even he would be scared, especially when it was dark. The young man showed a sample with an exhibition glove and sewing scissors, explaining to the girl that these are his working tools. Dahlia felt ashamed and apologized to Marcel. In return, he apologized too. The guy says he is a fashion designer, and this place is his atelier, as he personally designs and sews the dresses himself. Dahlia looks at the shelf of women's hats and asks if he did it all himself. Marcel replies that he has been interested in sewing since he was a child and has many more ideas to work on. The young man shows the girl his dresses and asks which of them she liked best. The girl rubs herself a little and replies that all are very beautiful. Marcel says it's impossible to say for sure if it fits, in which case there's a simple solution because you have to try on all the dresses, and the one you like, you can keep. Suddenly, Delia cries out, because you can't do that. Marcel wonders why, and maybe she doesn't like it. The girl replies that you can't get such expensive things for free. The guy walks closer to Delia and tells her, because he didn't say he was giving the dresses away for free. Delia inferring that it is a dress to little girls he gives as an excuse, but Marcel argues that he is not, for as of late she keeps suspecting him of abnormal things. The girl asks, and how she should understand it. The guy turning to Delia says he needs her help because only she can do it. The girl thinks for a moment because she doesn't know how she can help him. Meanwhile, a knight bursts into the Duke's room and shrieks, asking if he's talking about this chicken-looking girl and why he suddenly needs her. The Duke replied that no reason was needed for his order. The general agreed and bent down in front of his master. Suddenly, the Duke was invited to the class, and leaving he told the warrior that the golden-haired, curly-haired girl, because her personal details are missing, but she is distinguished by her eloquence and belongs to the lower class. Let him immediately find her and bring her to him. The general told all this to his subordinates, for he had searched the whole district since dawn to fulfill his orders. But she was nowhere to be found, and claims that they should search for her together with him. The knights shriek in surprise, because today is the feudal tax collection day, and even if they start looking for her right now, because it will take a whole week. Turning to the general, they say it's not time for him to do the search either. The worried general says he can't do it alone. After all, there are a lot of girls in this vast territory, and so it will be easier to declare her wanted and attach her portrait to the test. One of the knights could draw very well, and so he agreed to draw the girl's portrait. The general quickly gave orders to move the paper and paints and gather all the boys who were patrolling that day, for he wanted to catch this chicken very soon and present her as a present to their duke. The girl, dressed in an exquisite dress taking in her direction, surprised looks, because no one knew whose daughter this is, and never met her in social circles. Delia is in Marcel's workshop, wondering what she can do to help. The guy offers to put on her dress and walk down the street. Marcel claims that this is her beautiful image in her best dress, because she is sure to attract a lot of attention with her appearance, and when she is asked where she bought this dress, she must say that she bought it in Marcel's boutique. Walking down the street in an exquisitely beautiful dress on Delia draw the attention of girls and, not restraining their curiosity, ask where she bought it. Thinking for a moment, the protagonist, not having time to answer, saw the tent and quickly ran. After all, her pendant, even if it is the only one in the world. But from the look of it, it's just an ordinary wooden trinket, and if it was made of iron, then you could sell it and get money. When she went inside the tent, the girl saw that nothing had changed, because everything remained as it was. But not finding the pendant, she worriedly wondered where she had dropped it. Walking down the street, Delia thinks that even and if she has entered the world of the real past, because this place that Ji-hee has invented there is an imaginary country inside the work. And all she knows, and that's just the true story, which wouldn't be in an imaginary world. Suddenly, the protagonist saw a stone sculpture of a naked man who looked very much like David. The girl began to explore the sculpture, scrutinizing every detail and trying to understand the intricacies of the artist's craftsmanship. The salesman approached the girl and asked if she was interested in antique items. After all, we have even more of them in our store, and let her come in and take a look. Once inside the store, Delia saw many interesting things, and at that time the man talks about his product with enthusiasm and shares the key features of the product, emphasizing its advantage and unique features. Girls, I wonder, because there are not a few real-life relics and works here, objects from the East mixed with Western exhibits, but a confused size, half the size of the real thing. Inspecting all these products, the protagonist suddenly felt excited and intrigued in front of the famous work of art. The seller offers her to buy this painting for 400 pheromons. The man does not know the name of the artist who painted this picture, for he is not very famous. Delia thought that even to the incomparable Da Vinci, they were ruthless. The girl says you shouldn't store paintings like this, and because they fade in the sunlight. She suggests either curtaining it or flipping it over. The man, objecting, says that these works are not valuable enough to be treated with such care. To change the salesman's mind, Delia asks him to look at a surprising facial expression that is either smiling or not. After all, it is a very fine work of craftsmanship that even technically there is nothing to pick on. The surprised girl asks the question, if such works of art they have no value, then what things are honored here? The salesman wonders if the girl knows her way around. After all of the items presented are of a fairly high standard, and most of the works have either an unknown source or a completely unnamed author. The man claims that aristocrats prefer famous authors, so they do not collect such paintings. After all, they have no significance to invest in them. The angry girl, unable to contain herself, called autocrats fools. But fearing to be overheard, she left wishing the salesman good luck with his sales. Where it has been is a creation that has withstood the passage of time for several centuries. And even if you exclude the artist's fame, these works don't deserve this kind of treatment. The girl, not far away from the store, heard the salesman address the Duke decided to discreetly overhear their conversation. Duke says he's here to ask a question regarding a specific thing. A respected person showed the seller the pendant and asked if he had ever seen such an ornament. The seller replied that it was the first time he had seen one of these, while wondering where he got it from. The Duke, answering, says that a girl from a poor family dropped it and he is looking for her. The seller, looking at the pendant, says that this ornament he sees for the first time, and it is specific because these pendants are made to attract good luck. The man, examining the pendant, continues saying that the large sun placed in the middle is perfect for attracting happiness, but there is a problem that on the edge of the image of the moon is placed. Delia covered her mouth with her hand, shrieking that it was her pendant. She wondered if the Duke was looking for her, and maybe remembered her face, since she'd bumped into him a few times, or if she wouldn't recognize him. A good plan came into Delia's mind that she could pass herself off as more noble than him and get her pendant back, as if this pendant was originally lost by a noble lady and a lower-class girl picked it up. But suddenly, the protagonist doubts that if she can't confidently confirm her status, she's likely to be discovered. But if she does, she can just grab the pendant and run away. The seller, examining the pendant, says that from time immemorial, the sun was considered a symbol of good luck, and there must be some reason for carving the moon, and he should check the back of the pendant. Eavesdropping on the conversation, Delia thinks that there is nothing on the backside after all, and it will be possible to find out on the day of the full moon, which we have to wait for another month. The man goes on to say that the material of the pendant is similar to baobab wood, and from the look of it, you can assume it was made not too long ago. The seller apologized because he can't say anything else. When the Duke left, the merchant apologized for his insolence and advised that it would be better if he got rid of such a thing, bringing bad luck, for on the polar night, several people had died. Coming from a walk, Delia asks Marcel if he knows the Duke of Pearl, but Marcel replies that it's the first time he's heard. Ah, nem. Further thinks that, in fact, because here the Duke is an unimportant person, so he cannot know anything about him. Talking to Marcel, the protagonist wonders which title is higher, Baron or Duke. The guy replies that the title of Baron is higher. The girl asks again what rank the clergyman belongs to. Marcel asks in surprise who it is. Delia realized, because there are no believers here. Marcel explains to the girl that there are 3 main discharges. As to the aristocracy belongs the king, baron, marquis, count, viscount, duke. Knights to the common people belong the free people and serfs, and slaves and vagabonds to the lower class. Delia realized that essentially only the baron and duke had been swapped. After listening to the guy, the girl asked if he belonged to the free people. Marcel replied that she was insulting him, as he is above the duke in status, and retorted that she was from an inferior class. The protagonist, cringing, asks how he knew she was from a lower class. The boy replies that he concluded from her clothes, for they are clothes worn only by slaves or vagrants, belonging to the lower class. So anyone will be able to guess its origin, Delia asks sadly, expressing her sadness in her tone of voice, for knowing this he still dressed her in such a dress. Marcel replies that this is what the Imperium is, a country where only power reigns, and in a place who has power is not only perceived by status. And for everyone, the definition of strength is different depending on their value system. So for some, strength will be power, and for others, combat aid or intelligence. Continuing to speak, Marcel states that whoever has power is the people of the Imperium and will be treated as an equal regardless of status. But for Nevo, the ultimate power lies in beauty, and that's why he accepts her as his equal. Delia listens carefully to Marcel and asks him the question again, for isn't status the most important thing, and he receives treatment appropriate to his inferior status. The guy agrees with the girl, but the protagonist asks again that he has acquaintances from the aristocracy as the influence of controversy and dissension among the nobility of the Imperium. Marcel, however, cries out that he doesn't know. After all, to create sparkling outfits, it is mandatory to cherish your pure inner world, and the secular society mired in hidden struggles only sullies the soul. The girl, expressing her interest, asks because not everyone can afford such a dress. Marcel replies that expensive things can cost as much as a whole house. The protagonist asks Marcel to find out from tomorrow from the girls that come here if they have a suitable workplace for her. The surprised guy asks if she doesn't enjoy wearing the dresses he created. Delia cringes and says he's joking. The protagonist says she wants to get a grip on the aristocracy and get personally close to the nobility. After all, that way he can sell them dresses. By sticking to this method, they will kill two birds with one stone. But Marcel argues that aristocratic girls can be found here and she need not agonize. After listening carefully to the guy, the girls say that she doesn't want to bow at their feet all the time, and let him imagine that the so-called noblemen had gathered the three of them in their private domain and were leisurely sipping tea, discussing current fashion or anyone's reputation, and if the odds were good that they would see her dress on the street. Delia continued to reason that it would be better to capture the attention of girls of noble descent, who have the power of influence and whom everyone adores, than from the lower class. Not knowing what to answer, Marcel agrees with the girl. The guy says that if she's sure about it, there's nowhere for him to go. It's not like he can forcibly keep her. Delia remembered she had another question, asking the guy if he could write. The warrior who agreed to paint the missing girl's portrait shrieks that the job is done. Marcel asks, "Probably every family probably has one book." And the girl did a good job of learning all the letters in one night. The girl thinks this is the first time she has seen such writing, and the principle is that the alphabet is replaced in each letter. She wonderingly thinks that only one book, and that's what Marcel has. As Delia walked out into the street, she heard the girls selling flowers, and shrieking says she must be as noble an aristocrat as possible. The protagonist was in such a hurry that she didn't even notice her friend, but Bellucci recognized her.